Because if you don't get fed that, you don't find out about Julian Assange getting kicked out of the embassy in London. You don't find out about a million different stories that are in the news.
It's a fun story. It's a cool story, but do I need to know it?
It's a fun story. That's a quote for you from now on. Hey, what about Julian Assange? Tom Papa, hands up, in quotes. It's a fun story. It's a cool story, but I don't need to know it. Holy shit.
Really?
That's you just redefined white privilege.
Well,
right there. You hit it. You hit it on the head and lit it on fire.
So that little clip you just watched was an example of how white privilege has become a joke to so-called white people. And that's a tactic used to discredit what the people who are talking about stories, that the information that people are talking about that goes against your narrative. That's what you have to do. You have to laugh at them. You have to make fun of them. You have to discredit them. You have to make their views non-existent or not hold any weight. So the term white privilege connects to the term white supremacy, which connects to the term colonialism, which connects to the New World Order, which is in response to not an old world order, but an old world peoples. And those peoples are the ones that have had their land stolen, taken, so on and so forth. And since there have been so many years passed and so many generations that have come after that war has been waged, like I said in previous videos, there has been a war against a particular race of people, which is that non-white people. There's a war that has been waged. That is what white supremacy is. And I ask people constantly, and still in the truth community, nothing has been said. I ask people constantly, has that war been stopped? Have the people who have waged that war against our people, the ones who have genocided entire nations of people, the ones who have taken entire nations of land, the ones who have destroyed hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of acres of land and water and air and all this other stuff, has that war been stopped? Has a peace treaty been made? No, in fact, all the peace treaties that have been brought up in their own world with the Native Americans, all of them, somewhere up around 400 plus, have been ignored. See, that is the truth that the truther community can't look at. So this is the point of this whole video. Instead of laughing at it, one version is to laugh at other people's truth. Another version is to distract from other people's truth. And then the other version is to talk about other truth like it's the only truth. So this is what's happening. People like Joe Rogan laugh at the truth that you're talking about. Other people like Alex Jones distract from the truth by just making their midstream truth more attractive because of their numbers. And then you have people in the truth community who just glorify other kinds of truth to distract from the deeper truth. So this is all the psychology within the truth community and the conscious community that nobody's really talking about. It's the infrastructure of the truther discussion. So like I said, you have people who are laughing at the truth. So people who laugh at flat earth and laugh at you even mentioning white supremacy. It's the same kind of response. Then you have people who are distracting from that, who are like downplaying you and demonizing you. And then you have other people who are like glorifying other kinds of truth, who are like glorifying Bernie Sanders and the progressive truth and TYT and all that other stuff. Those are people. The same things happen in flat earth. Like, for example, like Alex Jones playing, or Logan Paul, who claims to be a truther now, who went straight to Alex Jones. And so his version of truth is like Alex Jones. And he started with flat Earth. So, excuse me. So you can see how these like midstream layers of truth individuals are designed. They have a particular box that they stay in. If they go outside of that box, they won't have any power anymore, because their power exists in the demographics that they are catering to. So Logan Paul caters to the like empty, hollowed out, child, adolescent minded, barely adult who is totally sucked into what social media has told them to pay attention to. The man-child mentality. Then you have Alex Jones, who caters to like a little bit older, like the millennials who think they know what's going on because they have an internet connection and they can research a little bit. And then you have the truther community who knows like all these different platforms like Alex Jones, Mark Dice, TYT, all these different kinds of platforms are basically saying the same thing. Point is, what are they saying? And so this is what the truther community does. The truther community says they think they know what that midstream level of truth is saying, and then they regurgitate it out back to you. So this is where you get flat earthers like DITRH, who are now promoting people like Owen Benjamin simply because he's mentioning flat earth. So they don't give a fuck about the fact that he's also promoting white supremacy. They won't talk about that because they're only interested in what story benefits them. And they also won't give a shit if he's talking about white supremacy and white privilege. So they will promote him even though he's talking about white supremacy. See, they will skip completely over other flat earthers who have been talking about flat earth for years. They will completely skip over the information that has been brought up by those individuals just so they can jump on the bandwagon of other individuals, even if those other individuals are like blatantly pushing white supremacy. Like I said, Owen Benjamin has stated white people are generally smarter than black people. Like this is that old world mentality. Like he's saying white people are scientifically smarter than other people. That is the mentality of white supremacy. See, that kind of truth just gets washed over and accepted by people like DITRH in the truther community because they are still trying to protect, whether they know it or not, they're still trying to protect that system. That system benefits what they want. So they're not truthers anymore. They are simply sharing information that benefits their ulterior motives. The same way Owen Benjamin is sharing truth only to benefit his ulterior motives. And the ulterior motives that I'm talking about in reference to this information is the empire that is intertwined with white supremacy. That's why you have all these so-called truther communities not talking about that truth. And you also have fringe truther communities like Alex Jones and Joe Rogan who are blatantly pushing the white supremacy agenda. Owen Benjamin is blatantly pushing the white supremacy agenda. And you have these hollowed out, dumbass so-called truthers like DITRH who are just regurgitating what they say simply because those people are famous. They're doing the same thing that Mark and Patricia did with that Netflix bullshit. And they will pump white supremacy and white privilege no matter what. As long as they got a flat earth tag on it, they don't give a fuck. If there's a flat earth tag on it and there's a celebrity attached to it, they don't give a shit if they talk about white supremacy or not. As long as they're talking about flat earth, whatever it is that mentions to them. That's why I said these flat earthers ain't worth a damn. They don't give a shit about what you're talking about. They'd rather get the numbers up than actually get to the real truth. So these are the layers of so-called truthers that are out there. You got the Joe Rogan, who's basically the podcast of the mainstream. That's one level. And that's where they laugh at white privilege. Like they make a fucking joke about it. So all the information that comes from Julian Assange and all that WikiLeaks and all that stuff, it's all fucking laughable now. all the Hillary Clinton shit, all the shit pertaining to Haiti and all that other stuff, it's fucking laughable now. Because you have these privileged pricks who are going around on their platform just pushing their weight around as if that's the only thing that matters. Oh, it doesn't matter. The truth doesn't matter. What matters is how many fucking subscribers you got. So you have that level of truth, the so-called truth. Then you have Alex Jones, who's now like intermingling with people like Logan Paul. And then you have, so you got Joe Rogan, then you got DITRH, then you got Logan Paul and Alex Jones. All of them, like, I'm just giving you proof that all of them are supporting the white supremacy agenda. They're pushing the New World Order. You know, Alex Jones is a character in the NWO, that whole RWS, racism, white supremacy. You know he's a part of that agenda. They're protecting 1776, the Constitution, that whole colonial mindset. What's the psychology behind that? What does that really mean? See, they won't talk about any of that stuff. They will just make fun of it and laugh and put these people on here, like put her on there, and then she's going to defend Alex Jones against Logan Paul. They're going to demonize Alex Jones and make it look like they're taking him out, but actually they're making him go onto these other platforms. So they're making the other platforms more complex. So they're making the storyline that Alex Jones was actually pushing, they're actually forcing it onto the other platforms by not allowing him to have his own platform. So they're pushing the discussion that they want to be had onto these platforms. So they did that by demonizing him. They made him like an attraction. So this is why he's on Logan Paul. They made Alex Jones an attraction. And you can see at the end of this, this is all on purpose. He's been made into an attraction on purpose for a long time now. And if you guys can't fucking see that, this is why I'm saying, like, so Logan Paul and Alex Jones are in the same circles as Owen Benjamin. Like, they're saying that they're spreading the same amount of consciousness. It's like Will Smith on YouTube now. They're pushing the same type of mentality. So you have people like DRTRH who are pushing those people only because they have the numbers. And they're too naive to realize the bigger picture that's going on. So they're going to do, and they are doing the same thing that Mark and Patricia did with Flat Earth. They're pushing it even further. And then they're going to come back and say, oh, well, we didn't know. Owen Benjamin seemed such like a nice guy because he was talking about his family and his wife, and he's growing food, and he's putting all this positive information about, you know, telling the truth about the government and all this other stuff out there. And we just thought that he was a real nice person because he was talking about how the system works, and we just reposted his video called The Trick on there, and we had no idea he was going to be such an asshole and be such a racist. We just had no idea. After they got all those fucking views and after they already pushed his fucking agenda on their platform. How many times are they going to play that dumbass like, oh, we just had no idea, and other people are going to fucking fall for it? How many times is that going to happen? And this keeps happening. That story will keep happening. We had no idea, like Mark and Patricia. We had no idea the documentarians were going to turn flat earthers into like they were mentally unstable. We had no idea. They are playing that nice guy role all the time. That is their privilege. We don't have that fucking privilege. We make one fucking mistake, we're done. You say one word, you say one word out of line, you make one fucking mistake, and and you will be buried underneath the truther community. Like they put that shit out there so hard, or you'll be buried underneath everything. That's how strong and powerful RWS is in that whole system of thinking. That's what we're really talking about here. How do you think? Alex Jones is designed to create a how do you think mentality, like to create a space to make you think like him. Joe Rogan is the same way. That's what a podcast is. They're casting a pod of information onto your consciousness. What is a pod? You get into a pod and you stay in that pod, and you're consistently going on to that channel to have pods of information casted like spells around your consciousness, and you stay in there in that little bubble like all those other fucking non-thinking for themselves assholes. And you consistently play in that world like you fucking know everything, and you cross-reference those podcasts, but those things is those pods exist and those spells exist in a universe, in a world that has been pre-created. It's already been pre-chewed. It's been pre-chewed by RWS. It's been pre-chewed by white privilege. It's been pre-chewed by white supremacy. And since people like DITRH and Logan Paul and Alex Jones and Joe Rogan don't know a fucking slightest clue about how deep white supremacy, colonialism, and white privilege, all this stuff goes, they will continue to push the agenda that benefits that mentality without even knowing it. So this is what DITRH at the best of the, like giving DITRH the benefit of the doubt. They don't know that they're pushing the RWS agenda because they're just fucking naive. So since the naivete is a benefactor to the YouTube environment, they'll use them and just say, oh, well, why don't you talk about this? Like, this is why Owen Benjamin and Alex Jones are out there. To get naive ass truthers like DITRH to push the macro agenda, they just want them to support the person. They don't give a fuck about, like, DITRH doesn't care about like everything else. Obviously, they just care about like the fact that they're talking about flat earth. So they're fucking naive to what the actual people mean. So the system knows this. So the system puts these people like Alex Jones, Joe Rogan, and Owen Benjamin out there for the naive YouTubers to just promote the individual. They don't care about, like, they know that they're going to push the individual without looking and without knowing about what the individual actually represents. So instead of pushing the thoughts and the information, the mainstream media, instead of putting the information out there, they just have to push the individuals out there. And as long as they push the individuals out there, the individuals represent the consciousness, the mindset that the people need to like regurgitate and reflect, mostly subconsciously, because that's how everybody is controlled with this mind control. So when DITRH supports Owen Benjamin, consciously you think he's supporting or they're supporting flat earth, but subconsciously and even consciously to people who are paying attention, DITRH by supporting Owen Benjamin is also supporting racism, white supremacy, white privilege. They are also supporting colonialism. That's what they're also supporting. But since everybody's like, oh, they're such sweet people and they're in the truther community and so on and so forth, the people are getting the comment sections even on this video and say, well, you're just being this and you're being that. They are not like that. They are not like this. I'm not saying like, I'm not pointing fingers as far as like they know what the fuck they're doing. Largely, a lot of these people are naive. Like I said, they're naive. So they don't know what the fuck they're doing. So that's a question. Instead of commenting on this video, you need to ask yourself or go on that video. Ask them. Do they know what the fuck they're doing? Ask them questions if they know they are supporting white supremacy. If they know that they are supporting that mentality. Ask them. Don't get emotional like a fucking child and come on here and start talking about, well, they're not doing this. They've done so much for the community. And Stop emotionally defending something that you honestly completely don't know, and you will only know if you ask them. So before you get in your emotions and feelings about what you think and what you like emotionally respond to, get over to their channel and ask them why the fuck do they keep supporting people like Owen Benjamin and keep ignoring the information that's coming from truther channels like my channel and other channel that's exposing people like Owen Benjamin. Ask those fucking questions. That shit won't happen, though. because people, it's easy to fall into your emotions. It's easy to take the easy route like everybody else and just join on a bandwagon, join on a squad that's already been established. That's why they got these beta male fucking cheap ass people like Logan Paul out there with podcasts and millions of subscribers. Them old ghost ass subscribers on there. You really think that shit is real? No. Just the same way they're pushing Alex Jones and Joe Rogan and Owen Benjamin to push the persona, the naivete that they represent. The same thing happens with Logan Paul. It's a stupidity of consciousness that's pumped out there when they pump subscribers into individuals like that. It's no different than putting like dumb drugs into the food or or fluoridating the water. Logan Paul is a version of fluoridating the water. Joe Rogan is a type of fluoridating the water. Alex Jones is a type of fluoridating the water. And if you ask me, channels like DITRH and people who are pumping like Owen Benjamin, who are just regurgitating the Owen Benjamin storyline for their own like fucking particular benefits, they are also fluoridating the water. They're fluoridating the waters of consciousness. And these are the individuals that are doing it right now. And this is why your so-called truther community won't go anywhere. This is or wherever you think it's supposed to go. It's because these assholes haven't realized the difference between the micro and the macro story. And they're still doing the work for the fucking system.